Welcome back to another episode of the Legacy Shift podcast. Have you ever had a moment with your child where your reaction is just didn't match what actually happened? Like maybe they ignored you and then your chest suddenly tightened, or maybe they talked back and it feels like a punch to your authority. Perhaps they melt down and something inside you spirals, and the overwhelm, the frustration, maybe even some shame shows up. And part of you is watching it happen in real time, thinking, why am I reacting like this? This is so much bigger than it needs to be. Here's the truth most parenting actively misses. You're not actually reacting to your child's behavior. You're reacting to what your brain is making that behavior mean. Let that land. When your child ignores you, your brain might make it mean they don't respect me. When they have a tantrum in public, they might mean I'm being judged. When they don't listen, it might mean, oh, I'm losing control of the situation. Your body doesn't pause to question that meaning, it just reacts to it instantly, automatically, and often really intense. So now you're just not responding to a child who didn't put their shoes on. You're responding to that disrespect, the failure, to the losing of control. And that's often why it feels so big. It isn't about the moment in front of you. It's about the story your brain attached to that moment. And once you can see this, you can't really unsee it. Because once you start to realize the trigger is never the behavior, it's the meaning behind the behavior. So, in this episode, we're going to break it all the way down for you. I'm going to show you what's happening in your brain and your nervous system in real time and why your reactions feel so fast and so intense, and how to separate the fact from story so you can actually respond to a way that aligns in the kind of parent that you want to be. When you shift that meaning, you can really change everything. So, let's get into it. So I'm going to start this episode off with some stories because why not? This episode has really spoken to me to come and speak about because it's something that I am constantly battling with my older children. And when I say my older children, I'm talking like the pre-adolescents, okay? I've got a lot of kids in different age groups, but what I'm finding is this pre-adolescent really does stretch my boundaries and stretch my way of thinking in terms of how I'm responding to situations. So let me tell you about my oldest. He does push back quite often. So for instance, just yesterday, this past week has been really eventful. All of my kids had a virus come through our house, and I'm at my nervous system capacity. And I know that I'm at my nervous system capacity. So I tried to account for that. And my oldest was pushing that boundary a lot. He wanted to do his own projects, or he wasn't listening when I asked him to stop playing a game, or if he wanted to do something in the kitchen, which I have no problem with, but I wasn't able to manage it in that moment. And getting a lot of pushback from that, and a lot of, I don't have to listen to you. You're not in charge of me. You're not the boss of me. And man, oh man, did my body respond in a way that brought me back to when I was a child and how I was responded to when I did that kind of thing. And I really wanted to break it down in this episode because what's really happening in our brains is we have a predictive brain and it's making meaning. So your brain is a meaning making machine. It's constantly asking, what does this mean for me? And I was doing that. What does this mean for me? If I let this slide, does it mean that he thinks that he can walk all over me? Do I need to show that I'm in control in the situation? Do I need to show that I have control over what's going on? What is this going on in the background? This is all the thoughts that are going on in the background. So to tie this to parenting a little bit more, when my child ignores me, my brain fills it in. It's saying, hey, they don't respect you in this moment. And that's exactly the conversation I had yesterday with him. I said, listen, respect goes both ways. I respect you and you respect me. So when I say no, I needed to listen to that. And that's automatically where my brain went. Now, obviously, I came from a regulated place as best as I could when I was saying that. However, there was still some snippy in there because I was at the end of my capacity. If my child ignores me, it could also make me feel like I'm losing control, or maybe I'm not doing this right. What's going on, right? Your brain doesn't just see the behavior that's happening, it's telling you the story about the behavior. And often this comes from how we were raised in childhood. What is my nervous system telling me about the behavior, right? And how I respond to that behavior is a direct result of how I was responded to in that exact situation when I was the same age. So, predictive processing, the brain anticipates and interprets it before you're even aware of what's going on. Your past experience shape the current interpretations, right? So, exact same situation happened when I was a child. I was told to go to my room. I was yelled at. I was had things taken away and I had punishments and things like that. And as a parent of today who's making changes and breaking cycles and changing generational patterns, I have decided not to show up and parent that way. So I did respond to it in a very different way. But my initial nervous system reaction was, oh my gosh, I have to make him see that I'm in control here and I need to show my authority. So, very different, very challenging situation to be in. And often, and I've seen a lot of this online, and maybe you have too, but when your child's ignoring you, it doesn't mean that they are disrespecting you. They have a plethora of other things going on in their mind, just as us as adults, right? They could interpret, my kids could interpret me as not responding to them as, oh, my mom's ignoring me. But that's not the case. Maybe it's, I'm thinking about the dishes that have to be done and the meals that have to be made and the form that needs to be filled out. And, oh, what is school going to look like next year? And, oh, do I have everything ready for the baby? And what do I have to do here? What do I have to do there? So I've got this running tally going on in my mind, but it can be interpreted as, oh, she's ignoring me. She's not responding to me. So this is where I talk about parenting is never about perfection. And if that's what your goal is, then that's a quick way to be burnt out and your nervous system is going to go into flight, fight, or freeze mode. I've been there and maybe I'll do a whole episode on that flight, fight, or freeze mode because it's very interesting place to be. And but if you're trying to reach to be the perfect parent, that's where you're going to go. But I always talk about, hey, we're having presence over perfection. So in those moments, yes, I may be thinking about a whole bunch of things, but it's more important for me to respond in those moments because again, not about being perfect, it's about being present in that moment. So at the end of the day, the brain always will anticipate and interpret what you are trying to do before you're even aware of what's going on. Now, this can feel so intense because the amygdala reacts way faster than any conscious thought does. And the amygdala is in the front of your brain. What it does is it scans for threat, not the truth of what's going on. So the amygdala will, okay, what's going on here? Is it safe? Is it not safe? How have you responded to situations like this in the past? Et cetera, et cetera. And often, if we were reprimanded as children for it, it will mean that, hey, this is a threat to us because it was a threat to us as a child, right? Now, as adults, we get to change that story, and we can do that through changing different neural pathways and things like that. But to have the connection to parenting, this is where the disrespect shows up, or we think it's disrespect, and we feel like it's a threat to our authority. Or if they're having a tantrum in public, this is where it's like a threat of judgment, right? When I first became a mom and my kids would have tantrums in public, I'd be embarrassed because I'd be like, oh, I feel like I have to show up and show the people around me that I have the situation under control. And what I've learned along my parenting journey is the most important thing in that situation isn't the people, it's what is going on right in front of me. It's being there for my child who's having some big feelings, right? I want them to feel safe. I want their nervous systems to feel safe. And it doesn't matter what Karen down the street thinks because it's not her child and she can judge me all she wants. And I will take that judgment on because my most important thing is that my children have an amazing mom to be able to respect their boundaries and respect what's going on around them. But it's challenging to separate that amygdala response from that conscious thought in that moment. Like if your kid's not listening, this is where it really can feel like, oh, I'm losing control here. They're not listening. I've said get off the game 15 times in the last 10 minutes and they're not listening. And okay, that could make it feel like you're losing control. Your body really does react to perceived meaning as if it's in real danger. based on previous nervous system responses. So this is not about you being too much, it's about your nervous system really trying to protect you. Your nervous system wants to protect you from scary situations or feelings or situations where they may feel unsafe. Even if our conscious brain is like, this is a safe situation, we don't have to react to it, right? But that speed is very different where our amygdala responds so fast, our conscious thought hasn't caught up. So let's dive into some hidden triggers. So these are core beliefs or identity threats that may come across in situations like this, right? We're going to break it down to a little bit of a deeper layer. So common meanings parents attached. So attached to whatever situation of my child not listening to me or they're having a tantrum, whatever it is, okay? Maybe it's I'm failing as a parent. I feel like they don't respect me. Maybe my kids are thinking they can walk all over me. Maybe they think that I'm not in control of the situation. All these people are judging me based on the way I'm parenting. And those are just the meanings that we attach sometimes because that's what comes up really quick. That's what we see all over social media. That's what we see. Maybe those are the feelings that are coming up, and that's okay. But really, what's happening is your identity is you're being a good parent, you're a respected parent, you're in control in those situations. Okay. Those are the core beliefs that I hold on to. And I know as a conscious parent, many other conscious parents hold on to. We are good parents, we're respected parents, and we're in control. And that may look different than what control looked like 25 years ago when we were growing up. In fact, I guarantee you it looks different now than 25 years ago when we were growing up, right? So, an in control parent, a respected parent back in the day, if we want to date ourselves, back in the day was one who yelled and the child listened immediately, or one who threatened and the child stopped what they were doing. However, that's not safe. That's not a safe environment to grow up in. That's largely a reason I'm going to say why a lot of parents today, a lot of our millennial parents or Gen Z parents that we're finding have want to regulate their nervous system is because they didn't feel regulated as a child. They didn't know how to regulate. They didn't have the tools to regulate because they grew up in a state of fear or feeling unsafe in their nervous system. So now, yes, you're a good parent. Yes, you're a respected parent. And a respected parent looks so much different today, right? A respected parent, in my opinion, is one who sees their child as a person, who allows them to express themselves and to hear them and not to shut them down and to allow them to express their frustrations and tell you what they're feeling and say how they want something different and who feels safe in doing so. A respected parent allows their children to do that, and in return, they receive respect back. Now, that being said, we still have adolescents, we still have children, and they still have feelings, and they're going to not listen sometimes, and they're going to throw tantrums sometimes. And that's just them being children. That's how children respond. That's what they're supposed to do. That's their job. Quite literally, that's their job. It's how they learn about the environment, how they learn about the world. They express themselves. And it's our job to be able to give them a safe environment, to have a safe, regulated nervous system. Often the intensity of your reaction often matches the identity that feels threatened. So, how do we separate our identity from our reaction, right? So, a child yelling, it's not just noise. It sometimes becomes, I can't handle this, which becomes an identity threat, which then escalates. So, example of this is this just this morning again, there were some big feelings showing up, and this is between my husband and my son. And they were both getting escalated, right? And they were both saying things that were unkind to one another. And I just had to step in and I said, you know what, I see what you're saying. I understand what's going on. I know you're having big feelings, and it's okay that we're feeling this way. I had to step in because I could see that my husband was escalating and his identity was being threatened, and my child was escalating. And I wanted to stop that escalation because I'm here to make sure that everybody's nervous system is protected. And it's important that we can do that as conscious parents. Alrighty. This next section that we're going to talk about is a little bit of a reframe. So we talked a lot about identity that we may feel or things that may come up or things that maybe come up from our nervous system responses as a child. We're going to reframe those, and we're going to reframe those in a wonderful way. Fact, My child is yelling. Great. Every child yells, right? Every child yells. The story that we're telling ourselves is they're being disrespectful. This shouldn't be happening. I can't handle this, right? These are the stories that we as parents are telling ourselves. The key reframe here that the behavior is real, 100% it's real. They're yelling, right? But the meaning we place on that behavior is optional. So we can give it the meaning of, oh, they don't respect me. Or we can give it a different meaning like, oh, they want to be heard, right? Let's walk through a real life example. Say my child ignores my request. By the way, this happens almost every single day. Someone is ignoring something I've said, even just this morning. I could give you so many real life examples of this, but even just this morning, I was calling up for the kids to come down for school, and they just were not paying attention and not listening to me. They were quite honestly ignoring to me. And anyways, they ended up coming down. They just ended up telling me they didn't hear me, which is fine. But so the fact is, okay, my child didn't respond to me, right? They didn't. I was yelling up the stairs for them to come down for school, and they didn't respond to me. The story I could have given myself is they don't respect me, right? But instead, just pausing for a moment in that story, and you can say, you know what, my body reacted in a way that I think that they're not respecting me, but that's not the fact that's going on, right? So they came down and, okay, I didn't hear you. Oh, okay, that's okay. We just got to get ready for school, sort of thing. So not reacting in a way that is a past story, right? We get to decide what the story is based on the facts that are present. How do we really release meaning to a story? So this is something you can actually do in the moment, okay? So you can ask yourself the question, what am I making this mean? Am I making this mean that I'm being disrespected? Or am I making this mean that, hey, I maybe need to lean in a little bit here and learn something, right? And then you can ask yourself, hey, is this fact or is this interpretation? This just allows yourself to have a mini pause and then ask yourself, what else could be true in this moment, right? What else could be true? So let's go back to the not listening example. So they're not listening. Maybe that can mean that they're dysregulated. Maybe that can mean that they didn't process the request, right? 5-year-olds only operate on 25% of their brain. They're still learning. These brains are not fully developed until these kids are like between 20 to 25, right? So maybe it could mean they're not listening, could mean they need support, not correction. So we can really look at the situation from a different lens and really decide, hey, what's the meaning we're going to give their reaction? Instead of jumping to those old stories and saying, oh, they're not respecting me. So when you change the meaning, you change your reaction and the outcome is completely different. So this is a little integration that you can do whenever kind of these situations come up. For me, they come up every single day. And they probably will continue to come up every single day. Because like I said earlier in the podcast, it's their job. It's our kids' job to do these things and to test boundaries and to show up how they think they need to show up. And it's our jobs to give them that safe space to do that. So when you change that meaning, you change your reaction. And that's everything at the end of the day. You get to decide what your reaction is. Are you going to show up and try to show authority, or are you going to show up in a calm, regulated manner and show them what true regulation looks like? So let's bring it back. Your child's behavior really isn't controlling you. The meaning that your brain assigns to it is. And when you start really to separate the fact from the story, you create this space and it allows you to breathe and to choose and to respond differently to situations. This is really truly how we break cycles. So it's not by controlling our children, but it's by understanding what's happening within us. If this episode resonated with you, I would love for you to share it with another parent who maybe needs this shift. And if you really want a simple, powerful way to regulate your nervous system in real time, download my 90-second nervous system reset. I'll link it in the show notes. It's available, it's free, and regulate your nervous system in 90 seconds. This is also something I use every single day to help myself regulate in those moments of capacity when my capacity is full. Also, please don't forget to follow this podcast so that you don't miss the next episode. Whether it's on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, or if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, just listen to this and subscribe to the podcast. We'll go even deeper every single week on how your nervous system shapes your parenting. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Legacy Shift podcast, and I will be back next week.